All right, you know the deal. I'll give you all the latest updates social, politically, while Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor, will be talking about all the crazy economic news. And there's a lot of it. The numbers look up. They're in the green. But there's a totally different story that you're not hearing that you're going to be hearing in this video. But first, let's talk about the big social and political impacts as, of course, news is coming in all over the world. But one of the biggest news is now that the reptilian queen and Prince Philip are in self-isolation after Prince Charles just tested positive for the coronavirus. Yes, that's the news dominating headlines right now, and just shows you as more prominent people in the limelight get it. Hopefully more people start taking everything that's happening more seriously, as of course many people worry about individuals and celebrities, but in reality, they should never push anyone above themselves. New York City is taking a turn for the worse as even morgues are nearing capacity right now. Military is, of course, setting up makeshift morgues and makeshift hospitals as we are speaking. And this is all as New York City is looking like it will become the next Wuhan. A very dangerous situation that, of course, I will be getting into specifically and how to prevent this specifically on the main channel. You want all the latest updates about my old home, New York City? I'll give you that on the main channel. But there are some promising results coming from new treatments, including the treatment of high dosages of vitamin C IVs that have been implemented in New York, as well as other experimental solutions and cures and treatments towards this coronavirus that may be very promising and may help the dramatic situation unfolding right now in New York City. By the way, vitamin C was also just banned throughout many places in the United States intravenously, by the way. But moving forward, Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, has also started to speak out publicly about the coronavirus, saying specifically that this is far worse than it looks. After, of course, visiting a hospital with patients that had coronavirus, he donned a full hazmat suit. And this is really interesting since, again, Russia hasn't been that hit by the coronavirus. They've reported 495 cases. There's one death. And overall, when you compare Russia's numbers, they're very insignificant compared to the world's numbers. So that's something to consider, especially the way that Vladimir Putin is treating this. Meanwhile, here in the United States, politicians are doing what they do best during a crisis, and that's trying to galvanize as much money and power and control for themselves, which is exactly what they're doing with the bailout funds, the supposed stimulus funds, as Chuck Schumer prioritized that Trump and Jared Kushner and his family couldn't get any money from the $2 trillion coronavirus bailout fund that is happening right now. All the while, other major corporations and globalist international cabals most likely will benefit off of it, as well as a larger $4 trillion bailout that, of course, will only benefit the banksters in this country, just like we saw in 2008, just repeated once again. But with all of that news, surprisingly, the stock is up. The Dow is up 1,000 points after, of course, some people say that there's clarity now about what is going to happen in the future, especially after the very strong words by Donald Trump saying that he would go against doctors' orders and prioritize the economy over, of course, the latest crisis that's happening right now. Tim, you're the financial planner. You're the expert here. The numbers are up. What do you make of it? And there's also some other crazy news from Rashida Tlaib that's just utterly insane. But I'm going to have you have it right here.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. And just so the people know, when we initially talked about doing a show, it was not to have me coming on to just do financial analysis things, but we didn't realize that the day I was coming on, everything was like the day it would start breaking down. But one thing I wanted to interject, but I accidentally had muted myself, is that I believe it was Prince Philip that actually said that if I were to be reincarnated, I would be a killer virus. And so I've got a quote here where it says, "If I were reincarnated, I would wish to be returned to Earth as a killer virus to lower the human population levels." Then goes on to say, "I must confess that I am tempted to ask for reincarnation as a particularly deadly virus." Now, it says Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. And luckily, I'm not well schooled enough to actually know if that's the same Prince Philip. But do you know if that's the same Prince Philip or not off the top of your head? Or
This looks like it, yes. And yeah, there's a lot of crazy, sick individuals coughing on people and
Really?
licking stuff. And, so, I mean, this man said it. I would keep a close eye on him, to say the least.
Yeah, so be careful what you wish for, I guess, and no pun intended with the sick individual. But here we go. Talk about sick individual. Mint the effing coin. Rep Rashid Tlaib proposes radical law to provide coronavirus relief to patients. And wait for it. Her plan, in the most basic form, would immediately provide a U.S. debit card preloaded with $2,000 for every person in America. Each card now support every person in America. So, Josh, maybe you shouldn't have fled down to Mexico because you're not in America right now. So each card would be recharged with $1,000 monthly until 1 year after the end of the coronavirus. And then how are we going to pay for this? This is really cute. The Treasury would direct the U.S. Mint to issue two $1 trillion platinum coins under the legal authority provided by USC, blah, blah, blah. Congress would direct the Federal Reserve to purchase the newly issued coins at full face value. Then the Fed would complete the purchase by crediting the U.S. mints at the Fed with $2 trillion in reserves. The Fed would retain ownership of the two $1 trillion coins. I mean, why don't you just make it a $2 trillion coin permanently in order to ensure its own balance sheet remains fully capitalized by the Treasury. The Treasury would sweep the newly created reserve funds from the Mint's account into the regular Treasury general account. The Treasury would make the funds available to the Bureau of Fiscal Service. I didn't even know there is a Bureau of Fiscal Service to disperse to every person in America in the form of prepaid U.S. debit cards. So there you go. They're going to take a coin that they make up, say this is worth $1 trillion, and then the Treasury is going to make that up, and the Fed's going to say, oh, we'll just buy that from you, and then that's how we're going to pay for it. So this is ideas that people that we've entrusted in power, actually, I wouldn't say necessarily this is what the ideas are coming up with. Now, this Joe Wiesenthal, what a great name. This guy is such a weasel. I believe he's the chief editor of the Business Insider. I mean, if there was ever a guy who was just trying to whore himself out to be one of the power elite, I mean, that's the exact impression that I've gotten from this guy from day one. And luckily, we do have the profanity filter on here. So it says, mint the freaking coin, mail the freaking checks, and mitigate the freaking coronavirus. And yeah, there was other words he had in there. And so this guy's an economist as well. And so here he's saying, goes on to say, what a great idea this is. And I can't believe no one's thought of this before. But yeah, people have thought of this idea before. And speaking of crazy ideas, this is not an idea. This is going on right now, or at least when we started. We had the 3-month Treasury bill. Last time I checked, was still negative. The 1 month was just about right here at even. Now, this is not any directive that came from the Fed. This is actually what was going on from the market. And so as we went live, it was at negative 0.035%. So if I refresh the screen, we'll see where we're at. And yeah, so it still shows we're still at the same. So we have a negative 3-month Treasury yield right now. Insanity. And this is something that John Sneisen and myself did talk about in June in a video from last year. And we said that not that we wanted to see negative interest rates, is that we were just predicting that based on where things were going and where we saw the tea leaves, that's what we thought. And so, yeah, we are here right now, negative interest rates, the complete insanity that is going on. And not to make this, not to belabor that point anymore, but we've got Osama Ben Bernanke, the coronavirus disruptions much closer to a major snowstorm than the Great Depression. And I believe that Bernanke had a paper, I can't remember the year on this, but probably about 15 years ago, where he said something along the lines of, yes, we did it. We were the ones who caused the Great Depression. And by we, he means the Federal Reserve. So if someone wants to link that in the comments, if you guys go and DuckDuckGo that or pre-search it, you can actually find a speech where he admitted that the Fed caused the Great Depression. And guess what? They caused the Great Depression 2.0, which is what is going on currently. And we've got another Fed head over here, James Bullard, who has come out and said that after a short, unparalleled shock to the economy, things will boom again. Speaking of what isn't booming, we got mortgage firms brace for wave of missed payments as coronavirus slams homeowners, and and some firms like Quicken and Mr. Cooper are on the hook for principal and interest. And full disclosure, I actually sold my home 2 years ago. I bought it within 1 month of the market low. Thought that things were going to crash 2 years ago. So unfortunately, I've pissed away a lot of money in rent, which was probably the money that I would have used to, that I was worried about losing. So so I am, writing this out right now, renting. And unfortunately, my landlord is now panicking and now is going to sell my home. So now I'm in search of a new home to try to ride this out. But what are people doing? Enough about me. What are people?
But there's also new laws that prevent eviction during this time in particular states as well. So also keep that in mind. So the government's intervention is very severe here, and I think there's going to be even more intervention with particular cases like that. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, no, I'm supposed to be looking at new homes today, except or apartments to ride this out, except they're all basically closed. And so I get virtual tours and I can't even go and look at places, and realtors can't show places. So, I mean, I don't know I told this lady when I was coming in here, I'm like, listen, she's like, well, you're a homeowner. You've got to do this and this. I'm like, listen, I am a homeowner. I just thought that it was a big bubble. So I wanted to sell, but unfortunately I sold about a year and a half too early. But now we have got debt jubilees. This actually used to be a thing where about every 40 years, the queen used to just forgive all the debts. And so this is coming back again, where a debt jubilee is the only way to avoid depression. Except, I mean, it's not as easy as what people make out to believe, because, I mean, the Social Security Trust Fund is actually what it is. It's a filing cabinet in West Virginia that's literally not even bigger, like as big as like the desk behind me.
It's a slush fund. It's a Ponzi scheme. Sorry, go ahead.
It's not even the Social Security. It's a filing cabinet filled with IOUs in West Virginia in the Office of the Debt. All it is, it's this make-believe filing. It's in a filing cabinet. And so it's not even that big. It's like maybe not even 6 feet tall. And so that is what Social Security is, but it's IOUs, which are debt. And so if we cancel all the debt, then there goes all Social Security, which, and what they should do is, okay, well, if we can just print money, why don't we just take the present value of what your Social Security payments are. So let's say if you're getting, $1,000 a month and you're expected to live for another 20 years, I can figure that out in 2 seconds in my calculator and figure out, okay, well, that equals, $1.2 million. I'm just making that up. And then boom, just give everybody their $1.2 million or $1 million. And I think that'd be a much fairer way of doing this, because then you'd immediately get all the inflation at once. And then we can just go cancel everything out. And then that way, my generation and we're the same age. So our generation won't be screwed by this. Unfortunately, our generation is clamoring for more of this type of stuff, which, we're the ones who are going to have to pay for, the baby boomers, because they squandered, when things actually were the greatest economy ever, not the BS one that Trump was trying to parade around. But yeah, we're seeing this, the largest quarterly contraction ever is what they are expecting coming up. And, they're expecting, unemployment rate to maybe even touch, 20% when all is said and done. So yeah, they're looking at potentially negative 25. And I made bets with people when Trump first got in office that the GDP annualized would never hit 3%, and the deficit would go over $1 trillion by the time he left. Check. And I wish I was wrong. Now, man, does this feel true? Every day is like 2 months for stocks with unrelenting swings. It feels almost more like every day is 2 years over here. I sort of wish things will calm down, so then that way maybe we could take a day off or something over here. But the pace at what things are going at surprises even me, and I don't really get surprised by anything that's going on. Here we go. Future slide after bell. Actually, that's already kind of old news over here, because the markets are up. But yeah,
I think, Tim, just to really quick, I think the true test, the true real reality of the situation is going to come out when we have the quarterly reports, where we're going to have all the job numbers, all the unemployment numbers, and some people are saying this is going to be the worst ever quarterly contraction in the United States. So I think that's going to be another kind of big wake-up call to the kind of falsehood reality of how just a criminal banking system that we're really under, and just how greed has taken a hold of them and logic has completely gone out the door. What do you think about that?
Yeah, what I think is if I literally wrote the book on how these numbers are rigged. It's called How It's Rigged, the Economy. It's only 18 pages. I mean, I could have made it 200, but if you guys want to get that, you can text "change the news," one word. So change the news to 71441. We'll have that link down below, and then you'll get a free copy of my book, plus also get the crisis retiring presentation. And it's not to promote me. This was the game plan to ride this out, and it's still evergreen information. And it's important to know how they rig these numbers. And so even their BS rigged numbers are going to show this, complete cataclysmic collapse that is going on. And I don't know what's going to quote unquote save them. You know, is $6 trillion going to save them? Is getting a more, you know, all these bonds. I mean, the root word of bonds is bondage. You know, so getting us further into bondage, further into our own slavery, you know, further jeopardizing my kids and future grandchildren's, I mean, hopefully future grandchildren's, you know, livelihoods. I mean, this is complete insanity. I mean, basically, you know, I can't even put it into words in terms of negative rates already here. Talks of digital dollar already here. $1 trillion coins already here. You know, this is, I guess, a rare moment where I actually slowed down and didn't talk like a machine gun for 3 seconds. But before I go back to this, but it's just, I'm really at a loss of words of how the speed and gravity of which things are going. And it's going to go, everything is going to be fine until the day it's not fine. And maybe let's just check out and see what's going on in crypto. And yeah, how fitting right now that it was actually trading for 666. So we do have Bitcoin trading at 6,000.
Before we get into Bitcoin, I mean, I just wanted to add some of the stuff. I remember being in Zimbabwe and talking to people as the hyperinflation was hitting once again. And, you know, they're telling me all the telltale signs of everything that was happening behind, you know, before the major hit, before the major hyperinflation. And there's a lot of parallels. And they remember it just got quicker and quicker and quicker until the point where they were at the grocery store and they had to literally mark up everything times 10, times 100 in the price range for basic needs, time by time, minute by minute, as the economy was just flatlining, and it happened quicker before people even realized what was even going on. So, yeah, I'm curious what's happening in the crypto market, because we've seen, as you predicted and many other people predicted, it went down with the market, then it went sharply up. Now the market's going up. So I wonder what's the relation to the market going up now compared to Bitcoin.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to be getting their $1,000 or $2,000 lately, and a lot of people are thinking, "Hey, now's a pretty good time to you know, buy some gold, buy some silver, buy some crypto with that, because that's something that they can't inflate away." And I've always stated that it wasn't the crisis I was worried about; it was the response to the crisis is what I was worried about, and it's even bigger than what I thought. I mean, I was worried about it, and I didn't think it was going to be $6 trillion out of the gates, or even $2 trillion out of the gates. But here we are. And, you know, with something like Bitcoin, as people start realizing, and maybe, you know, it's going up because yesterday, I don't want to say, you know, with the Fed and Treasury having a digital dollar that provides, you know, legitimacy to this or not. But, you know, that could be one of the factors of why this is going up. But I think that you know, you had a lot of people who were really leveraged into this market. They needed to get funds quick. They wanted to go into safety. And so even people from our community were in big time fear mode, and they had to go sell out. But I think, you know, I was saying, I thought it was a buying opportunity, not a financial advice. If you guys want financial advice, you can go to my website and then, you know, book me for a free consultation. But for right now, it's, you know, I think in a long time horizon, it is a good spot to buy. I think it's even a better idea to buy some Bitcoin inside your Roth IRA. And then if we see gigantic gains, then you get tax-free. You can take money out tax-free. There's even things that you can take money out, you know, to buy homes and stuff like that without getting taxed. So it's, that's what I've been, you know, promoting for a while. You know, and there's times where it makes sense, and there's times where it's overvalued. Right now, I think it's an undervalued time. That's just my own opinion on this. But yeah, could it go back down to 2,000, 3,000? Yeah, it could. But I think on a long enough time horizon, this is going to be a blip. Just like you look at the stock market, and yeah, in 87, the stock market, I don't know what it went down to, like 600. But what's that today? It's, you know, 21,000. So, you know, in the past, you know, 24 hours, we've gotten our Dow 18,000, 19,000, 20,000, and 21,000 hats. But even that could go back. I mean, just think of where the last recession started at. It was Dow like 14,500, I believe is where the Dow was at when it started. So we still have quite a ways to go. And yeah, we've seen a gigantic pump today, a gigantic pump yesterday. But what did it take to get that pump? It took $6 trillion, or the promise of $6 trillion. And it took, you know, all this unprecedented stimulus to get back to where the market was like 2 years ago. And, you know, and so this is not over. It's not a snowstorm, Ben Bernanke. Just, you know, you're just providing more material for us later on, just like when he said in late 2007, potentially even January 2008. So if someone wants to look that up for us too, said something like, you know, subprime is contained and not that big of a deal. And people want to also credit, what's her name? Janet Yellen. for being some soothsayer that predicted all this crisis. She didn't actually predict the crisis. And actually, Peter Schiff had a pretty good video on that where he went through and talked about how, went through and actually pulled her actual quotes. And she talked just because she mentioned the word housing once in a speech does not mean she predicted anything. But yeah, going back to the Federal Reserve, they had it on their own website in 2014 from a speech Stanley Fischer gave. Stanley Fischer was the vice chair, also was the former Bank of Israel chair. The Bank of Israel chairman, which why do you have someone from another country with an allegiance to Israel who then running the Federal Reserve or second in command at the Federal Reserve? And I'm not being anti-Israel, just think that, you shouldn't have heads of other countries controlling your money supply. There shouldn't even be a Federal Reserve. That's a whole other topic. And that's why you've got, Lord Rothschild said, I care not who makes the laws. I care who controls the money, and I control the money. And so right now it's all about the money, who has the control. And it's not about the money. It's about the control. So everything they're doing is trying to socially engineer people, trying to control people. And this is not going to end well. And yeah, we've got $1 trillion coin talks, negative interest rates, digital dollar. This is moving just so fast, and it's hard to even tell, what's a good headline. Is the headline negative rates? Is the headline, $1 trillion coins? Is the headline? I mean, it's just the pace of this is staggering, even for me.
Yeah, I mean, and it's only going to kind of quicken from here. I mean, what we're watching right now is unprecedented. It's absolutely insane. And looking at the projections of the coronavirus, which I'm specifically looking at, there's other people saying, oh, don't worry about it. Economy first. Let's make sure we don't have a Great Depression. Let's make sure we don't have a suicide again. That's a big leverage. That's a big battle. And it could go either way here. But, for the first time in a long time, I'm not that optimistic, especially with specific areas where I think this could be taken seriously and there could be effective measures done, and they're not being done. I'm going to go into those effective measures on the main channel on We Are Change, which I'm going to be talking about a lot. But this is a huge financial thunderstorm that's happening right now, and at any time you could get hit by a lightning bolt. I mean, the reports that are coming in are showing that the United States has lost 500,000 millionaires, and the world's wealthiest 500 have lost $1.3 trillion since the start of this. But of course, there's other people who profit out of all this, and that of course are individuals like Jeff Bezos, who is $5 billion richer than of course he was last year. And of course, with everyone going to Amazon, everyone saying, oh, just Amazon.
And the Walmart family sold into a charitable trust. And so how the charitable trust works, and this is actually specifically how I got into the Bitcoin market, was I was taking, and I went on Jeff Berwick's TDV Anarchast thing on January 3rd, 2018, saying, hey, you can sell your Bitcoin into these special types of trusts. You actually get to avoid capital gains. And then not only get to avoid capital gains, you actually then get to pay yourself then an income. And then that income is then offset by tax deductions that are on top of the capital gains. And so but you want to do that when the price of the asset is high. And so that's why about 2 weeks ago, the Walmart family took their shares, which actually were riding very high, and then they sold them into the charitable trust, bypassing capital gains. And so, don't hate the player, hate the game. I'm just doing the same things that, so if you do have assets that were appreciated, we do have, right now, very few and far between. Not a good time to do that for Bitcoin, but it's a good time if you bought in early to think about doing that and to start getting set up, because unfortunately Bitcoin moves so much and other assets move so much these days that, you really need to get this set up and catch it. So that way you can, we can click the button, move things over, because we missed it with a few people when Bitcoin was back above 10. But yeah, there are tools that the elite use, and right now, that's why they know what was going on, because they have factories over in China. They've got intel. They could see what was going on, and then they went and they pulled the plug beforehand. So then that way, they weren't left holding the bag. They were selling it to everybody else, while they're pumping up as, this is the greatest economy ever, selling it to the lemmings, and then the lemmings are then getting the chicken feed as those companies are then getting bailed out and profiting from all this.
And their retirements in there, as literally they're holding the bag as U.S. senators who know this big financial storm's coming. Well, they just sell you out, and of course they sell all their stocks, and of course get rich off of this. Absolutely, a lot of things happening. Thank you, Tim. Perfect time to team up with you. A lot of crazy news. We're going to keep covering it here on the Change the News channel. I guess that's the name. Whatever. Stay tuned for more.